Welcome to Season 5 of the Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom, where we talk with enterprise and technology platform leaders about the people, processes, and platforms that make marketing and customer experience successful, scalable, and sustainable. This is what creates an Agile brand. I'm your host, Greg Kihlstrom, advisor and consultant for Fortune 1000 marketing and CX leaders and teams as principal and chief strategist at GK5A, and best-selling author, keynote speaker, entrepreneur, and Agile certified coach. The Agile Brand podcast is brought to you by TEKsystems, an industry leader in full-stack technology services, talent services, and real-world application. For more information, go to teksystems.com. To sign up for the Agile Brand newsletter and get the latest insights and articles on marketing technology and CX, or to purchase a copy of my latest book, House of the Customer, go to gregkihlstrom.com. You can also find all my books on Amazon and other retailers. And now on to the show. Today we're going to talk about creating best-in-class, personalized, cross-channel customer experiences using a CDP, AI, orchestration, and more. To help me discuss this topic, I'd like to welcome Pini Yakuel, CEO at Optimove. Pini, welcome to the show.
Hey, Greg, thanks for having me.
Yeah, looking forward to talking about this with you. Before we dive in, though, why don't we get started by you giving a little background on yourself as well as on what Optimove does?
Yeah, for sure. So Optimove is the first customer-led marketing platform, and we've been up and running since 2012. It started a company back in Tel Aviv, and today we have offices in Tel Aviv, London, and New York. And we typically work with B2C brands, so people like Staples, Papa John's, FanDuel, different types of brands like that. And essentially, we're all about customer data, analytics, and how you use that to improve communication and personalization with your end consumers.
Great. Yeah, so we're here to talk about, really building best-in-class, personalized, cross-channel experiences. And so, we'll talk about a few different aspects of this. And one thing I wanted to start about, certainly something that's top of mind, it's hard to not read about it these days, AI, artificial intelligence, and, just kind of its relationship to the customer experience. So, how would you describe the optimal relationship between AI and the customer journey?
Yeah, I think that, ultimately, I think it starts with the relationship between AI and, the human user, the human operator of different marketing platforms.
Yeah.
And I think, the optimal relationship is kind of like the cliche that, I used to say, people say it a lot, like AI is not the Terminator, it's like Iron Man. So it's like the Iron Man suit. The idea is that the marketer brings in creativity, the marketer would ask the right question, the marketer would design an experiment, would do all of those great things. And the job of AI is mostly to optimize.
Yeah. So it's, and I always say it's augmenting what people or other platforms are doing, right? Is that kind of what you're saying?
I think I'm saying like it's supercharging the capabilities of a person. I think recently with Gen AI and like OpenAI, ChatGPT, stuff like that, like it's kind of like redefining things a little bit. I think it's still too soon to understand exactly what the impact's gonna be. So, it's a lot about language and kind of like, I'm sure that like my kids are not going to do homework in the same way with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
But this this is something I'm certain about. But like how exactly we're exploring a lot in Optimove, like we're actually got a big task force now, kind of like doing stuff with Gen AI and what types of use cases can we generate. Like a lot of it is around UX. Some of it is around kind of like summarizing data insights, obviously copywriting, like a lot of different things. But I think that like on sheer optimization, which is based on data, I think it's still kind of like the AI that we knew, let's say, a year ago.
Yeah. Well, and can you talk a little bit about that? Because I mean, you've been using AI in Optimove for years now,
Right.
probably from the start of the
Right.
product, right? Can you and it's, from my understanding, it's a little bit of a unique approach to it. So could you talk a little bit about that, and the decision making components, all of those ways that you've been using AI thus
Yeah.
far?
Yeah, I think so. So for us, kind of like when I started a company out of university, and I was studying and mastering in a framework called the Markov decision process, and basically this is what I applied in Optimove because when you're a hammer, the entire world looks like nails.
Right.
So I wanted to basically apply that model on customer data, and essentially, that's how we got started. So it's a model that kind of like looks at customers, puts them in tiny micro segments, and then kind of like tracks their behavior and how they move between those micro segments. And based on that, you can basically predict different things. You can take decisions. So you can optimize between different options. So that's the overall framework. So what it gave us at the beginning was like different predictive scores, and different values like future lifetime value and different things like that, predicted lifetime value, churn. Also, that was the beginning. But today we're able to essentially have this model optimize and choose the best communication which a customer should get if that customer is eligible for a few different things. And usually with advanced CRM marketing programs, what happens is if you just got a few journeys on, like they probably never collide, and they're completely orthogonal. So then you don't need it.
Yeah.
But when your program becomes more sophisticated to cater to your real customer wants and needs, what happens is that an individual customer can be eligible to many different things, and then we use AI to choose the one that is going to satisfy the customer the most and yield the most return for the business.
Yeah, yeah, and I want to get back to the concept of journey orchestration in a second as well. But before we do that, real quick, one more thing on AI. As certainly you work with a lot of great brands and have worked with a lot of teams over the years. What should marketers keep in mind when using AI? Are there mindset shifts that some of your customers sometimes have to go through to before they start using it? What should they be keeping in mind as they kind of make this, again,
Yeah.
almost a mental shift?
Yeah. I think first of all, yeah, it's actually pretty interesting. Like there's a wide spectrum of behaviors, right? You got let's call it the old taxi driver type of a response, which is like a taxi driver that doesn't believe Waze can navigate better than
Right,
him.
right.
So sometimes you're just like, I don't know, I'm not gonna use this. It's like I know better. It's a machine. Like So I think sometimes people need to understand that that shouldn't be the case, right? Especially by actually researching and understanding the problem that AI is trying to help you with. That's number one. And I think on the other side of the spectrum, you have people that have insane expectations. Like, why didn't it tell me, that the sky's gonna be red tomorrow, or why didn't it
Right.
tell me that like this is gonna be my best selling, like unrealistic expectations. Um, Also can jeopardize your utilization and usage of AI. And I think both ends of the spectrum stem from the fact that like some people are not educated enough. So the truth is in the middle, right? So you shouldn't expect insane miracles from it, right? At the end of the day, the marketer is still going to be there calling the shots, building out experiences for customers, analyzing data, taking decisions, designing experiments, asking questions. The human's still going to be the human, and the marketer's still going to do his thing. And now, like, it's going to basically sometimes going to save you some time, sometimes it's going to make something simpler, sometimes it's going to boost performance just because it can permute and run a lot of different tests and just choose the best
Yeah.
one while you are basically sipping beer at the beach.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I like that. So it's kind of a good segue here to, I want to get back to the customer journey part conversation. And, certainly Optimove already had capabilities in this area for a while, but in 2022 acquired a company called Cumulos, which expanded these capabilities across channels, including mobile. So I've talked and written a lot about this channel switching behavior of customers. It used to be a decade or more ago, someone might switch between 2 or 3 channels. I think now it's like an average customer switches between 5 or 6 out of potential 15, 16 channels. So a lot of channel switching going on between this. And what do brands need to know and be doing about this behavior so that they're incorporating that into their experience, but also just to increase loyalty, retention, and satisfaction throughout that journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got a few thoughts about channels. I think the first one, obvious one, is that, I think quite a few, like 5-7 years ago, I remember when I was living in the States, kind of like, going to all the trade shows, everybody was talking omni-channel, right? There was a point in time that everybody was talking omni-channel. And if you think about it, it's true, right? You do want to be able to orchestrate one seamless experience that sees all the channels in one place, and the channels can basically bounce off one another, communicate in a way with one another. So if you think about like you're running some kind of a campaign or a journey, you want to be able to make sure the channels, sometimes you do symmetric messaging, so you'll say the same thing across a few channels, right? Which is nice and important. Sometimes you'll have the channels complement one another, right? So one would start with one thing and the other one would continue to another thing, assuming that you can capture the behavior between the two and stitch the data. So it is true that an omni-channel experience is much more valuable because the customer is the same person, right? And they consume the information in different channels, but they still have this one brain that captures all this information.
Right.
And they don't want to feel like you're a different company when they're on mobile or they're on web or SMS or whatever. So that's 100% true, and something that is doable today, like with today's technology, like with Optimove and other people. For us, going back to like the Cumulus acquisition, it's a mobile marketing platform. We wanted to have, so we're on a mission to basically add muscle to the brain. And I'll explain what I mean by that. So we were born as a brain, but usually we would orchestrate communications and messages and interactions across different channels via API. So we would connect to, a Salesforce Marketing Cloud or, an acoustic or what used to be Silverpop. And we would connect to those different channels and orchestrate those experiences. But at the same time, those API integrations are sometimes not as seamless as you would want them to be. And sometimes they present challenges, sometimes they present limitations. So to deliver that experience to the fullest potential, we basically started on this journey of growing muscle to the brain, meaning like having our own native channels. So when we have our native channels and we have the AI in there and all the data in the same place and all the channels in the same place, we feel that we can deliver on this promise. I'm a great believer that data and channels need to live together. I think today the market kind of like buys it in a different way. So you'll buy your CDP and then you'll buy your message first platform and then you just kind of like stitch them together with an API. But, it doesn't impact the way that either one of them works. So I think that this kind of like siloed approach is still a problem.
Before we continue, I wanted to share a key strategic resource that a majority of the Fortune 500 are already aware of. Finding the best technology, business, and talent solutions is not easy. With business demands and competitive pressures mounting, you need to be able to design, deploy, and optimize your technology to provide leading customer experiences while driving business growth. Those of you that have been listening to this show for a while know that this podcast is brought to you by TEKsystems, a global provider of technology, business, and talent solutions for more than 80% of the Fortune 500. TEKsystems accelerates business transformation for their customers. Whether you're looking to maximize your technology ROI, drive business growth, or elevate customer experiences, TechSystems enables enterprises to capitalize on change. Learn more at techsystems.com. That's TEK systems.com. Now let's get back to the show. Your product, does a lot of things, but it certainly emphasizes the real-time aspect of all this too, which is certainly key. So real-time decisioning, real-time personalization. Why do you see this real-time component as such an important part of the customer experience?
Yeah. So again, I think and I've seen it throughout the years. At the beginning, people would talk about real time. I mean, if you go to there was always like some kind of real time technologies. Oh, probably 20 years ago, they were like way less powerful than today. But some people did something real time.
Yeah.
As the years went by and technologies became better, it's becoming more and more popular. And always the thing that people always acknowledge and understand is that like some marketing opportunities will be missed if you don't respond in real time.
Yeah.
So that's something that's clear to everybody. I think the confusion lies in the fact that like sometimes people think that everything needs to be in real time, and it goes into like the way data platforms are constructed. But like in the world of data, you still have kind of like real time platforms and analytics platforms. And you need both basically, because to perform like a deep analysis on historical data, real time platforms don't work for that. So so number one, I believe that like same is kind of like think about us as humans, right? So we all do kind of like real time processing. What's happening right now? I'm talking to Greg. He's asking me questions. I'm responding to you in real time. But at the same time, I'm relying on my long-term memory, my experience, things that I did before, and that's how you conduct yourself. And I think it's the same with smart, sophisticated CRM marketing platforms. It should be something similar. Now that covers the need for like customer interaction in real time. When you talk about decisioning, that's actually like a step further, where I would say sometimes a cue in real time or something that's happening in real time is something that I want to take into consideration. Let me give you an example. Let's say we have a communication going out to customers that have churned, right? They haven't interacted with the brand for more than 6 months. And what you want to do is, and you scheduled a campaign for today to talk to them about it, offer something, try to get them back. The campaign is scheduled for 4 p.m. Eastern time. Now, some of them, or let's say even one of them, 10 a.m., they're at your website, right? Browsing, looking at stuff. That's happening right now in real time.
Yeah.
Are you sending the 4 p.m. campaign? I don't know. It's a good question, right?
Right.
Maybe you are, but wait a second. Like your customer is checking you out right now. So maybe you want to say something else, right? Maybe you want to adapt your churn campaign and acknowledge that visit, or talk about something that happened at that visit. Right. So this is where you can basically use real-time data to also augment the decision or you kind of like your course of action. Like you're planning on doing something, but something happened in real time. Obviously, the big percent of this group is not going to be on your side on that day, especially customers return, but some will, right?
Yeah.
So I think real-time behavior can definitely, also impact the decisioning that we do in terms of what to say, when to say it, and to who to say it, or on what channel to say it. Like all of that stuff is something that you can optimize using real-time data.
Yeah. No, and I like that example too, because I think it does paint the picture, because, obviously we want to communicate, we want to reduce churn, we want to do all these things. And yet, it kind of shows the value of tying it together, which is the last thing I wanted to really talk about is, just not only tying it together, but also kind of, what's next with all of this. And so one-to-one, real-time, omni-channel personalization, that's a lot of buzzwords and jargon and everything, but it's also what I think brands should be striving for. And for some, saying those things, that's a that's something that seems attainable, even if it's not necessarily being attained today. For others, it may sound like science fiction, but it's still kind of the goal. But there's certainly some hurdles to get there for, especially for many. And so, one of the things that I've witnessed just in working even with very large brands on some exercises like this is just the idea of scaling. And how do you create enough content variations? How much is enough when you start thinking about personalizing, and especially when you start approaching that one-to-one idea? How should brands be thinking about this from a realistic and scaling perspective?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I've seen it evolved over the last 11 years.
Yeah.
Some unique folks were doing it very well also 11 years ago,
Yeah.
but that was very rare. I think it is getting better all the time. Definitely getting better. I think it varies per industry. We do see, folks in gaming being very sophisticated and building amazing programs. In other industries, it may be slower, but then it's on a case by case basis, right? Some company would have a data driven culture,
Yeah.
a test and learn culture, and they would just be obsessed about experiences and customers personalization. Some other companies are more about merchandising. They would believe that product triumphs everything, product, customer support. We
Right.
don't necessarily have to talk to our customers in a personalized manner because our product is so great, right?
Yeah.
So you see all of that. I think that the things that make it successful is, first of all, I would start with the org structure that a company has, right?
Yeah.
So if you have an org structure that is still designed by channel, as an example, so you have an email team, you have a mobile team, you have a
Yeah.
website team, you have a store team, that makes it harder. You're gonna struggle with achieving things like that. If your executives are asking you to push email revenue towards the end of the quarter and fire a few more campaigns to make sure that you hit a number, I think
Yeah.
that's going to be challenging. That's going to be hard. I think the way to do it is like you want to design a team that's multidisciplinary. So yes, you need some folks that understand mobile better, folks that understand email better, but the team is a customer-centric team that's designed to build experiences for customers, for the end customer, because the same customer, the same person. That team should ideally have a leader that can understand this. That team should be data literate. Maybe some people in that team will be deeper in the data, but they don't need to be analysts or things like that, because there's tools that can allow them to democratize that capability. And of course, they can talk to internal folks in the company, internal resources that know this better. But it's mostly multidisciplinary team. Like, I think that would be the beginning. And the
Yeah.
second part would be just like the name of your blog, Greg, is to adopt the agile approach,
Yeah.
essentially starting with things that are more simple. So even if you think about segmentation and how many different types of personas of customers you talk to, so you start with like maybe 3 or 5, but you're always engaging in the art of finding smaller and smaller experiences, but with automation and software
Yeah.
and just the ability to scale those things. As time goes by, you start to cover more and more unique experiences for your customers, and you build like a machine that's becoming a constant delighter, something that really impacts customer lifetime value, something that really pushes your revenue up, and essentially make people love you more, like for not only for your
Yeah.
product, but also for the way you engage with them.
Yeah, yeah, and so yeah, I just want to emphasize two things that you said. I agree with all of it, but two things in particular really pop out to me, and one is talking about the incentive structure, for lack of a better term, and you mentioned the example of the email team. Their job is to send emails and get as many opens and clicks and everything like that, and so kind of changing that incentive structure to be, we're not going to focus on how solely how a channel performs. We want every channel to perform as well as possible, of course, but we're going to focus on customer lifetime value, and how are we performing as an org across across silos. I think that's a really important thing that you said that I wanted to highlight. And second thing is the culture aspect and this culture of experimentation. And because that is a huge shift, and I think agile plays into that. I think just the idea of doing small things conceivably, I hate to use the F word, but failing as a learning experience. I mean, I embrace that. It took me a little while, but like once I started down that path, it's like I want to fail as much as I possibly can to get to success. But just that cultural shift. What does that take from? How have you seen that from? Is that a leadership? A leadership change, or how have you
Yes.
seen brands embrace those things?
Definitely, I think it should come from leadership. 100%. It's
Yeah.
I think you nailed it. If even I can tell you, like here internally in Optimove, I always kind of like in every meeting I'm at and in every session I'm at, I'm trying to understand kind of like if a piece of work can actually start smaller.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
basically trying to remove work that my teams are trying to do
Yeah.
and say, hey guys, if you nail it when it's smaller, yeah, next week do your plan, like evolve it to the next step. But first of
Yeah.
all, nail it when it's smaller, because we know, because things get complex and things, and especially when organizations are big and there's many departments, many technologies, many different types of agendas. You
Yeah.
gotta, we call it, the elephant carpaccio, right? You gotta slice it up to
Yeah.
thin slivers of work and deliver value. You gotta make sure you deliver value. And I think that the notion of agile is a very tricky one, right? That people interpret it differently, people,
Right.
look at it differently. But I think, and people always mistakenly think that agile is being unprofessional, is doing something which is
Yeah.
not thorough, not deep enough. And that's not the case. But it's such a, like, you always have to repeat it. And people think agile is only for developers. It's not true. It's in any team that gets stuff done, right?
Yeah.
They work in sprints, and try to think about the minimal amount of produce that will yield value, and then evolve it from there. But it's
Yeah.
always hard. Some people do it better than others. But to your point, yes, I think if it comes from management and you hire people that believe in it, talent is also a big thing, right? So the
Yeah.
having
Yeah.
good talent in experienced department is very important as well,
Yeah.
obviously.
No. No. Love it. Yeah. And I think as per the agile thing, I think if you hear people talking about agile as if it's A, reactive, B, we're winging it and making it up as we go, like those are always red flags to me. I mean, there certainly is an aspect of iterating and coming up with new things as you go, but it's it needs to be methodical, and I look at it as a scientific process, using scientific method and things like that. It's a lot more flexible because the cycles are shorter, and there's a focus on continuous improvement throughout, and things like that. So yeah. Well, Pini, thank you so much for joining the show. I've got one last question before we wrap up here, and you've given a lot of great advice already. But just if you had one piece of advice for brands that want to improve personalization across the journey, but maybe not sure where to start, what could they do today to make a difference?
Yeah, I think the stuff that we covered, I would probably start with org chart, and then I would probably
Yeah,
start with org chart is one, talent is the other, capabilities and data is another. The platform that you use. So see if you can incrementally move in each one of them to get better, because
yeah,
it's a journey. It's going to be a journey for every company. They're at a different stage, and it's going to be a journey. So I don't know if there's like one silver bullet, like one thing that would get it done, but all of the above would probably set you on the right path.
yeah, yeah. No, that's great. Well, again, I'd like to thank Pini Yakuel, CEO at Optimove, for joining the show. You can learn more about Pini and Optimove by following the links in the show notes. Thanks again for listening to the Agile Brand with Greg Kihlstrom podcast, brought to you by Tech Systems. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to subscribe on your podcast channel of choice and leave us a rating so that others can find the show more easily. You can access more episodes of the show at www.gregkihlstrom.com. That's GregKihlstrom.com. To get a copy of my latest book, House of the Customer, visit my website, or you can find it on Amazon or other retailers. The Agile Brand is produced by Missing Link, a Latina-owned, strategy-driven, creatively fueled production co-op. From ideation to creation, they craft human connections through intelligent, engaging, and informative content. Until next time, stay agile.